So it seems that we've got a surprise Warhammer 40k model reveal. The new Kill Team box set has been released and answers a fair few questions about the previous rumour engines. Seems that we have a warband of Ecclesiarchy Imperial Zealots fighting against some blood-crazed Khornate cultists who have seemed to decided that bionic taloned legs are a better improvement on their own. Hello and welcome back to Warspec Tactics, where today we're talking about the new model reveals for Kill Team. And given that it's only been a few hours since the Emperor's Children release, I thought I'd check in as to how that's going as well. Certainly the big news today are the Warhammer 40k model reveals. Usually when Games Workshop's revealing new miniatures for Warhammer 40k, they generally tend to do it either on their Monday previews at some random days during the week, or save them up for their big model reveals that happen on their big reveal shows at tournaments. I believe the next one should be at Adepticon, which will happen later in March. I think that the reason that these ones might have gone live today might have been their Warhammer World Anniversary event potentially. I don't know if they might have shown them off there, though it doesn't seem to be enormously obvious via their social media or their Warhammer community posts if they're trying to tie that in with that. In any case though, today we've got the news of the next Kill Team box set after Brutal and Cunning. And as mentioned, it seems to be Imperial Ecclesiarchy, which I guess will be a unit for the Sisters of Battle. And then on the other team it's Khornate cultists, which seem like they're going to be a version of raised jackal cultists as a unit for the World Eaters. It looks like there's 11 of the Ecclesiarchy Warband and they're being led by a Confessor. There's 8 of the Khornate jackal cultists and this warband's called the Goremongers. I don't know whether the kill team names will be the same as the datasheet names for Warhammer 40k once they eventually get them. And then they also have really quite a cool bit of terrain in the box set as well, a great big Imperial Shrine statue, which I think will add a bit of appeal to quite a few people out there. It is quite a fun terrain piece as they go. For these Kill Team box set releases, they generally tend to be around about the $140, £85 and €110 sort of mark. We don't know exactly when this was coming, but they said it's going to be at least kind of soon. I feel like they don't often tend to have as much of a lead time on their Kill Team boxes compared with some. I suspect it'll turn up for pre-order sometime within the next 2 to 8 weeks or so. In general, the box set supply of these really hasn't been so good as well. Brutal and Cunning and multiple previous ones sold out very quickly. They had a bit more of Hivestorm given that that was an edition release set. As usual, it might be that the big box comes out, it sells out very quickly, and then we're waiting really quite a long time for the individual releases of the Kill Teams, like at the moment we're still waiting for the Tank Busters and Rattlings from Brutal and Cunning. Before we get into the new model contents though, I thought I'd check in quickly with the Champions of Slaanesh box set launch. The new Emperor's Children box set goes up for pre-order today, and I was interested to find out whether or not it was selling out everywhere. Overall, it seems that the general vibe is that Games Workshop haven't really given their discount retailer suppliers very much stock of these, so a bunch of the major ones have sold out really quickly. Though in their own Warhammer web store, stock remains in Australia and New Zealand at the moment, and also in the UK and Europe web store, though at time of recording it's only gone live for around about 2.5 hours or so. So still pretty early days then, and it could go off sale. Looking at the discount stores around the world, for the affiliate ones that help support the channel, in the UK, Element Games and Wayland Games were sold out straight away. I'll leave Firestorm Games linked down in the video description, though they do have a lower discount rate of around about 5% or so. There still seems to be some available from Taschengeldieb in Germany and the EU. They're around 20% off, so quite good there. I'll link them below with the rest. Wargame Portal sold out dead fast in the USA. Apparently Games Workshop gave them a ridiculously low number versus how many they asked for. So of course they sold out dead fast. Apparently they might have a second wave of stock going live at 1 PM Eastern time. So that could be one way to get them at 15% off. Though bear in mind that these second wave ones can take a bit longer to arrive, around about 5 to 7 days later. Toy Snowman in Canada has them at 15% off as well, and their stock will be going live at 1 PM Eastern time as well, I believe. And apparently they have 30 boxes or so if you live over there. In any case, feel free to give any shout-outs to other discount retailers out there down in the comments. Hopefully as many people as possible can pick one up, and ideally at discount versus Games Workshop if possible. Let's take a look at some Zealots of the Imperial and Blood-crazed variety though, and here's the box art for the Blood and Zeal box set. It looks like this guy's the Imperial missionary with the plasma gun and a nice big flaming torch, facing off against one of the sinister World Eaters jackals with their characteristic blood tanks on the back, plus the sort of grinning and brazen mouthpiece that they tend to have. Looking at the miniatures, apparently the Imperial Ecclesiarchy team are called the Sanctifiers, and Games Workshop generally talks about them in terms of Kill Team more so than Warhammer 40k. But I guess when they're applied to Warhammer 40k, they'll be basically a Confessor Warband, led by this rather big, hulking and imposing looking Confessor on the left here, and that one kind of looks like a Mace of Absolution that the Dark Angels often have, at least maybe the old style Deathwing Knight ones in one way. Looks like he's reading from some sort of Imperial prayer book with a sort of inquisitorial symbol on there. Then we've got an Imperial Cherub with a little taser prod type thing. They generally tend to have sort of bonus once per game rules more so than actually having an individual miniature profile in the game, though if he's armed with an actual weapon that might be different here I suppose. It looks like he's the answer to that Imperial Cherub rumour engine that we saw not so very long ago. I was suspecting that that would probably be something for the sisters. I was right that it was a kill team, but I was speculating that maybe it could be Celestians or something. Then we've got a guy called a Conflagrationist who's armed with a pair of hand flamers. I guess if that gets a twin-linked hand flamer profile in Warhammer 40k, that would be a fairly reliable flame weapon there, particularly given that the Ministorum ones all hit at strength 4. Then we've got a Reliquant who looks like a banner bearer for the unit, and he gets another hand flamer. A rather creepy looking Miraculous, seeming like they're using some rather otherworldly gifts there. I don't know if they'll be a psyker of some description, or very creepy in appearance though, with those texts of scripture nailed into their hands. There's one called a Persecutor who seems to be armed with a Zealot's Vindictor, so that'll be yet another flame weapon and also should have some fairly good close combat punch. There's a Masked Salvationist clutching a locked chest with an Inquisitorial style symbol staff being the thing that they're equipped with. Then we've got the return of a Death Cult Assassin, armed with a pair of power blades and a rather sinister hooded appearance. They look perhaps a bit different to the ones that went off sale a while back, but kind of fun that they are able to field these in one way or another now. Should have at least an okay melee stat line. There's a rather fun guy called a Drill Abbot. Apparently he inspires the Warband in some way in Kill Team. It looks like he's got a rather fun looking power hammer there. He's the answer to another rumour engine I believe, the sort of skull in a box with the band across it that's a throwback to a previous miniature. Then I think some of my favourite miniatures out of the whole set are these two missionaries. In previous times they've sort of been able to be fielded as their own sort of priest-style unit, but looks like they'll just be special weapon toters in this squad. They've both got some big books of scripture on the back, one's holding up a Promethean-fed torch, and seems they're armed with a plasma gun and a flamer there. Overall, it's a pretty fun and characterful little band of Imperial Zealots, a lot of different character on a whole bunch of models, and gives me sort of similar kind of vibes to the Imperial Henchman Warband, the one that is available for the Imperial Agents. Apparently the general lore idea of these is that they're a supporting force of the Ecclesiarchy that might turn up following around either military formations or religious pilgrimages, or very heavily armed and ready to defend the faithful in any way, shape or form. I'm sure they'll only be too happy to have the opportunity to put some heretics or traitors to the torch. My guess is for how you'd be able to field them that they'd be primarily aimed at the Adeptus Sororitas. I feel like they'd be quite likely to be working with them, being Ecclesiarchy and Ministorum type folks, and the Cherub certainly is done in the exact same style as the Sisters ones. It seems that Games Workshop haven't confirmed exactly what faction they're going to be fielded for Warhammer 40k though. At least I couldn't see any in terms of any of the comments or things. I did notice someone had asked which faction they'd be available for, and their official social media account had said that they will get 40k rules but didn't say which faction they'd be available for. I feel like also being paired with that great big bit of sort of Imperial Sisters style statuary. Maybe that also maybe pushes them to Adeptus Sororitas for me, though maybe they'll have the chance to be fielded by both Sororitas and Agents. In terms of how they'll be able to be fielded, it looks like there'll be a slightly complicated unit of special weapon bearers. There's a good amount of different flame weapons in the squad, so they should be able to clear out light infantry rather well. They don't look like they have too many things that are going to punch up against tougher stuff. I guess that Zealot's Vindictor and the Plasma Gun could help out against Space Marine style targets. I feel like with units like this, there's always a good bit of scope for them getting some rather interesting special rules. Perhaps their Zealotry could give them some sort of scout style rule, or an interesting close combat damage buff. Will be fun to see if there's any major alternative builds within the kit as well, or if they're just sort of more monopose models. Usually with these kill team kits, they often tend to build the specialists and then have options to build more generic guys too. For their individual release after they come out in the big box set, they will be a kill team kit, so will be a bit more expensive than you'd like really. So probably in the region of $70, 55 euros or £44. That one's going by the Orc Commandos. Overall though, pretty fun models. Looks like they've had a lot of good reception in places where I've seen them talked about. Facing off against them are a Cornate kill team, these ones called the Goremongers, and it seems for the World Eaters ones they've gone for some boosted Jackal cultists. As best I can tell though, it looks like they're entirely new models as opposed to being an upgrade sprue. I don't know if there might be some way to adapt the Jackal bodies so they have those sort of clawed mechanical leg type things, so I guess it might be that I could be mistaken on that, but I'm fairly sure that they're an entirely new model kit. The news that their sort of Cornate cultists has had some mixed reaction from the World Eaters. I feel like the models themselves look nice enough, or very disturbing sort of Cornate cultists for Warhammer 40k. They almost feel a bit like how you'd imagine a Warcry band if it was for 40k. I think that World Eaters players were maybe hoping for something Space Marine though, particularly given that they don't exactly have the biggest unit roster in the world. Maybe something like some World Eaters Raptors equivalents, or just a different and fun variant of Elite Khorne Berserker could have been fun. is maybe doubling down on a niche that they already had filled within their very limited unit roster, to have another squad of violent cultist equivalents. These guys did seem like they might have been hinted as World Eaters kill teams as well. They specifically made allusion to kill teams in the Last Crusade book, being fielded by some more minor warbands of World Eaters, at least one of which was more aligned to the Mechanicum. I don't know if that might be trying to tie them in with those bionic legs that they have. In any case, the lore and theming for these guys seems to be that they're sort of jackal mortal cultists that are just unusually zealous and want to aspire to something greater than their kin. Apparently these guys often form cults of folks who have actually witnessed the otherworldly demons of Khorne in melee combat themselves and want to strive to emulate their greatness. Apparently cutting off their legs and replacing them with bionics is part of the whole thing, but otherwise beyond that they just tend to take their craft a bit better than the rest of the jackals out there. They still use the same combat stims and World Eaters blood tanks that they have on their back for the regular jackals. Looking through the models though, and they have all very cornate 8 of them. The leader of the unit is the Blood Herald, with a funky looking chainsword with a bunch of blades at the end. The cultist legs and things are all looking rather springy with the sort of backward jointed thing that they have going on. I feel like the leader certainly does a good job of looking like a sort of cornate shaman style figure. Then there's one called an Impaler who looks like he's got a sort of barbed harpoon launcher. It seems that that's the answer for a rumour engine that was literally just revealed, I think earlier this week I want to say. People were speculating that might have been Votan or Caradon overlords, but it seems that it's these guys. There's a Skull Claimer with a really cool looking massive chain axe, one called a Stalker fighting with dual chain blades. I suspect that the chain blades might have a bit of a consolidated profile when they get 40k rules. They'll have different stuff for kill team of course. There's one called an Inciter, seemingly fighting with some dual auto pistols there, in a bit of a dynamic pose running towards the enemy. A Blood Taker with some sort of ritual knife gathering some blood for the Blood God, and then a couple of aspirants, quite dynamic looking models fighting with a two-handed chain glaive thing. For their 40k rules and release, there'll be another cultist choice for the World Eaters. I feel like with their springy legs they might have a boosted movement and maybe some sort of either scouts or infiltrate style rule potentially. Hopefully they'll have something that's interesting enough to set them apart from the regular jackals, just to cut down on redundancy a bit. If there's only 8 in the unit, they might have a somewhat similar points cost. They'll probably be more elite and be a bit more dangerous on an individual basis, but still probably equally kind of fragile, being able to be cleared out with small arms fire a lot better than the Space Marines out there. Hopefully they manage to find a niche where it makes sense to include some of them in an army. World Eaters units do often tend to be going for the same style thing though. Most of them tend to be very angry guys with chain axes of some description or another. I guess that if these are more mere mortals, they'll probably be better against sort of lighter to medium infantry, as opposed to be particularly helpful for taking down heavy stuff. I'd hope that these guys might be a little bit less pricey than some of the individual kill team releases when they come out on their own. Unlike some of the rest of them, there's only 8 models in the box here, so hopefully that'll go hand in hand with a slightly lower price tag on the overall cost. Finally last, but by no means least, we have a great big Imperial Shrine statue. I feel like the kill team terrain that you get in them can be a little bit more or less useful for Warhammer 40k purposes, but this one feels like it's basically a miniature in its own right. Looks like we've got an all very angelic Sister of Battle with a great big pair of wings, holding a torch aloft, and power sword in the other hand, floating above a whole load of Imperial skulls. There's a few candles and offerings littering the base of it. I feel like this thing's definitely a selling point for the actual kill team box. It's not exactly the most functional 40k terrain in the world, though I think it will be really fun just as a centerpiece for maybe a more open area in the map. Not really taking up too much space on the battlefield, but adding a whole load of coolness and theme. In any case, a pretty fun little surprise reveal for the kill team stuff there. Let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments below. World Eaters players and Sisters players, what do you make of the new units? How do you rank the models? And if you could have chosen which kill team Games Workshop did decide to make for the factions, would you have gone with these or something different? As mentioned, I'll leave a few links for sites that are going to be stocking the Champions of Slaanesh box sets down in the video description. Feel free to check those out if you'd like to pick them up, and shout out other stores down in the comments. A big thank you to anyone supporting the channel through any of the affiliate links. Otherwise though, I'll leave that one there for now. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. Check out the Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel a bit more directly. Channel patrons get a few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular entry to the channel giveaways including the Champions of Slaanesh one, which is still ongoing at time of recording. That'll be open for another 10 hours or so by the time this goes live, and a big thank you to anyone supporting there. Really appreciate all of you tuning in general though. A massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.